about Tears of the Kingdom and what can we expect? It's true to say that nobody can claim to know the exact answer to that question, but I've tried to put some science around it, and the outcomes were quite surprising. As with all analytics and general mysticism of articulation and forecasting, understanding the environment and variables is key to knowing the likelihood of the outcome. And if this number talk sounds off base, well, don't underestimate the business that is the gaming industry in 2022. I mean, in my lifetime alone, gaming has grown from being a hobby to big business, with the industry value around 300 billion worldwide. Gaming is booming, but with all the booming opportunities come the opportunists, and along with them their share of ills. From crunch and overloading to loot box controversies, microtransactions targeting minors, and the dreaded overhyped, undercooked, buggy release day letdown, the growing industry is having its share of growing pains. And this relates fundamentally to Tears of the Kingdom, and the topic of this video based on the history of Zelda releases and Nintendo as a company, the gaming industry as well as a myriad of other factors. But for today, I'll avoid the nuance and detail. But you can't tackle this topic without addressing the litany of influences and variables that 2022 brings to challenge what you think you know about gaming. The quote, "a delayed game is eventually good, but a rushed game is forever bad," is well known in the industry, and hilariously, it's widely understood to have come from Zelda creator Shigeru Miyamoto in relation to one of the most popular Zelda titles being Ocarina of Time. Nintendo hit on a winner with the first Legend of Zelda on the NES, and when Ocarina of Time landed on the Nintendo 64, it was a game changer in every sense. Originally announced in 1995, Ocarina released in 98, and the quote allegedly surrounded Miyamoto's response to delays on the highly anticipated game. Yes folks, even back then game delays were a thing, and the time frame between A Link to the Past and the spiritual successor in Ocarina of Time ended up being 7 years, which puts the wait for Tears of the Kingdom into perspective. But no different to what we see today, pressure to release the new shiny game was heavy, and this became the basis of this legendary yet unsubstantiated quote. In fairness and true to form, Nintendo have a pretty solid record for having polished titles that rarely encounter the bugs you see with other AAA developers. And so the Zelda community is, for the most part, patiently waiting and abiding delays in understanding the need to make sure the game is polished, whilst they froth at the mouth in anticipation, of course. The point here is that Zelda titles notoriously take their time in development, and this usually coincides with new hardware and the showcasing of system and features that help to move the hardware and sell for Nintendo. So you expect them to show due diligence with the cuckoo that lays the golden egg, so to speak. I could go way further into other factors including technology, availability, changing markets, competing franchises, but you came here to get some sort of an answer, and albeit one based on logic, so that settled, let's hit on some hard numbers and make some estimations. The best comparison point we have for what to expect for Tears of the Kingdom is unsurprisingly Breath of the Wild itself. Let's start by putting aside the whole "it's the same engine" argument, because I think once we factor in the verticality of the Sky Islands, additional physics we've seen played out already in the trailers, and new chemistry-based mechanics into the playpen that was Breath of the Wild, I think it's fair to say this beast is going to be much different. If we imagine it almost to be the same type of approach, considering a significant portion of the challenges come down to those mechanics, then we can make a more direct comparison. And this is where it starts to get really interesting. Tears of the Kingdom, the timeline has development technically starting after Breath of the Wild's release in 2017, which puts it around 6 years from where to go. However, the real timeline as far as fans are concerned is from the announcement to release, which puts the wait time of 1,431 days, or close to 3.9 years. So let's round that off at 4 for comparison's sake. In the case of Breath of the Wild, we have the first announcement dating all the way back to January 2013, in a Nintendo Direct as a key title for the Wii U. The game though would ultimately launch on both the Wii U and the Nintendo Switch on the 3rd of March 2017, some 1,497 days or 4.1 years later. Applying that same liberal rounding I did earlier, we could round that off quite easily at 4 years, meaning the timelines match to each other. Let's forget the whole "it's the same engine" and Majora's Mask was turned around in a year crapola that you hear bandied about, because firstly, Majora's Mask getting turned around a year is nothing short of Herculean aside from the emotional and physical torment it put the team through. And secondly, unless you're the one making the game, maybe then you need to wait until it's out before you make calls on how long it should take to bend reality on a system that's almost half as powerful as its contemporaries out there, yet plays like a dream on a portable system. Back to the direct comparison, we could all agree at this point we've got a very similar starting basis, with total development somewhere between 5 to 6 years, but announcement to release clocking in around 4 years for both titles. Now, as far as we know, both titles will be on the Switch. We're going to avoid the whole new hardware argument, and more or less the team are pushing that little machine to its limits to crack out the calcs on wacky mechanics and speedrunning awesomeness we see this game produce on the regular. And that's of course not forgetting the size of the existing map for Breath of the Wild, where currently around only 50% of players suggest having fully completed the game. And now we're talking about adding in sky islands and verticality and who knows what else based on IG Numa's delay announcement in March of this year, where he stated, and I quote, "The adventure in this sequel will take place not just on the ground as in the previous game, but also on the skies above. However, the expanded world goes beyond that, and there will be an even wider variety of features you can enjoy, including new encounters and gameplay elements. Summarily, take Breath of the Wild and add more, much more, and I think it's going to be a lot." What I found the most astounding was in comparing the sheer amount of footage and trailer for Breath of the Wild over the development cycle we had in terms of total time and frequency in comparison to Tears of the Kingdom. I've tabled it and graphed it and it's stunning. You could give or take a few minor entries on this list as to what constitutes a trailer, but by and large I think anything featuring something new about the game we would consider a factor for Tears of the Kingdom. In total there were no less than 15 mainline event updates spanning from the initial reveal in January 2013 until release in March 2017. Including 2 delays which pushed it back to 2016 initially and then finally 2017. Almost the same as what we're seeing for Tears of the Kingdom. It's funny how they align. E3 2014 saw the first look trailer, and the Game Awards' first gameplay trailer in December of the same year made up the first 3 events showcasing Breath of the Wild to the world. Now, if you exclude the 7 seconds of gameplay with the delay announcement we're talking about for Tears of the Kingdom, we so far have experienced 3 event updates as far as that game is concerned, and those events culminate over a period of 3 years and 4 months from the announcement and comprise a whopping 3 minutes of footage. Now, the same 3 events for Breath of the Wild occurred in less than 2 years, almost half the time, and provided close to 9.5 minutes of footage. This is a literal feast of material in comparison to what we've seen for Tears of the Kingdom, and things get really serious for Breath of the Wild as it heads into 2016 and the E3 event of that year, where a slew of trailers come out featuring story, gameplay, combat, cooking, and even dynamic weather time-lapse events. In fact, on the comparative timeline by this stage of the fan waiting cycle for Breath of the Wild, we had experienced no less than 9 distinct update events about the game, totaling nearly 41 minutes of gameplay, story, mechanics, and visuals to pore over. And I compare this to our current position of still sitting at 3 events in 3 minutes. If updates were food, Zelda fans are in famine, folks, and the less we know, the more the anticipation is building. This ratio works out to about 8% of what you would have seen in the same period for Breath of the Wild. With that revelation out of the way, the same type of comparison though provides our best clue as to what updates still might be coming our way and what they might include and when we might expect them. So first we have the Game Awards, which is the closest one to us right now. Breath of the Wild featured in the 2016 Game Awards with new gameplay action and of course the emotionally scored Life in Ruin sequence that opened up more of everything to the fandom, adding the heart to the build-up Zelda fans live for. For us, the Game Awards are live on December the 8th, and as of writing this script, Nintendo have recently confirmed that Tears of the Kingdom is on track to release as stated. This means the hype train is real, and the Game Awards is prime time for a new trailer. If it follows in the stead of Breath of the Wild, we might expect to see something along the lines of gameplay, maybe score or music, environment, and hopefully a hint of story element as well. Working through the ratio though that we've noted currently, where we get around 8% of the equivalent as Breath of the Wild, that would work out to hopefully 35 to 38 seconds of something new footage wise. Now, funnily enough, that sits about perfectly in line with the timeframes of each major showing to date, with the trailers generally around the 30-second mark is what we've seen. Not a guarantee of course, but also factoring in that we've had the statue showing at Nintendo Live Japan in Tokyo recently, and the confirmation 4 days ago based on the financial outcomes to market with Shigeru Miyamoto and team headlining, I'm reasonably confident the event won't go by without Zelda having some present. If for some reason it doesn't, then you'd have to debate that Nintendo would be missing a great opportunity for free advertising and the best way to build hype for their game 6 months out of release. Beyond the Game Awards, Breath of the Wild then had a very short feature for the holiday season with Link shield surfing and spelling out some holiday wishes, so let's just put that down as a hard pass for us this year and instead move on to the next 3 major events. First cab off the rank is the big one, the Nintendo Switch presentation trailer that occurred in January 2017. This is what I'd call the ultimate hype tool pre-launch, and that was followed in February by the clip montages and beautiful world compilations, and then finally the last one was the DLC announcement, which arrived 3 weeks prior to launch. Aligning this pattern with Tears of the Kingdom and the release date of May, this will line up perfectly for February and Nintendo to do the major hype trailer for Nintendo Direct, followed by a compilation or teaser material of existing footage in March to keep things fresh, and finally the reveal of any DLC or online component that might be in play during April prior to the May release. We also have one other tantalising reveal that Breath of the Wild already received in the comparative timelines, and that is of course amiibo announcements and reveals. So we might expect that to come into play, and you'd really hope that would be around the December-January period to allow for pre-orders, but it may be contradictory to the story, so we may have to wait a little longer. My money will be on a 30-second or so update at the Game Awards in December the 8th, a screenshot or something interesting in January to remind you to pre-order, and leading to the major trailer in the February Nintendo Direct, which I expect will happen somewhere between the 9th and the 17th based on historical showings. And for that, expect the trailer to be no longer than 3 to 4 minutes if we're super lucky. I think it'll be more like 2 to 2.5 minutes based on how we're seeing things with Tears of the Kingdom, but this trailer will be the big one, as it will muster the entirety of the visual, cinematic, action, nostalgic, musical and emotional punch that we saw in the equivalent 2017 trailer that caused meltdowns worldwide. As I said, expect refreshes then in March in drips and drabs, but definitely something more solid in relation to DLC or online components potentially in the 3 to 4 week lead up to release. I heavily expect the DLC will have some connection to Switch Online, as it's a focus for the business and a great glue product to get those stubborn Zelda fans on board. Of course, I'd be remiss not to mention that my suggested placement of events and hypotheticals here could be completely off base and wrong entirely. That said, I'm happy that there's some science behind this, and although I don't expect to be bang on, I think we'll see something fairly close to this play out in terms of what you would expect from a marketing team in the lead up to a major launch title. The one thing I do expect Nintendo to keep sealed on though will be anything to do with the major story beats. That aspect will be censored finally, as have all the reveals to date, because as I keep saying, the big N is preparing to blow your expectations out of the water, and they don't want that spoiled before the time is right. I hope you got something out of this one. It's definitely a different video of the usual theories, but I ended up putting this together while working on other theory videos because I actually wanted to know what to expect coming up and when to expect it as well. That's right folks, I did this video for myself as well, because for those of you who are keeping score, I've been building on larger theory arcs, and a lot of the videos I'm doing for months now are all starting to come into alignment, where I want to actually start making some larger calls on where I think the game is going to go and what it's going to mean for the future of the Zelda series. It could be on target, or I could line up with most other Zelda tubers' track records of being massively off base, but either way, it's a lot of fun, and it should be interesting and hopefully entertaining for you as well. As always, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Do you think the predictions for the update sound right, or will we see Zelda appear at the Game Awards? Will we have some shiny amiibos announced in the near future? Maybe even in time for Christmas pre-orders? Let me know in the comments. Until next time, try those Tears of the Kingdom, and keep being amazing. We'll see you next time here on GameSmiths.